The birds are singing, the sun is climbing into the sky. It's already a warm morning, and it's time for the second part of our Polish adventure. Welcome to Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there. So far we've spent 2 nights in the historic centre of Wrocław, but now it's time to move on to Poland's 6th largest city. It's en route to our final destination of Warsaw, and we'll be taking the train to get there. So join us for the journey. Well, good morning from Wrocław. It's a fairly early start today because we're going to get a train just before 9 o'clock to take us about 200 kilometres or so to a city which is spelt Lodz. Yeah, it's pronounced Łódź, obviously, because of all the little accents on the letters. Nothing is ever that simple in Polish, is it? Now, it is a booming town, about 630,000 residents, and according to one guide, was once dubbed the Manchester of Poland because of its historical textiles industry, and now it's home to loads of creatives. It's also a big part in the Polish film industry. More of that later. So earlier in the season we talked about how easy it was to get from the main station in Wrocław to the Rynek, the market square. But if you're going in the opposite direction, do beware because there are several different tram and bus stops which serve different routes. You're looking for the one that's got the 18 going back towards the station. So, a 20-minute tram ride has brought me here to familiar territory, a train station. This is Wrocław Główny, and it's not just any train station, because if you come through here, you can get a sense, even just by listening, of the scale of this place. It's absolutely enormous. The hall, the main booking hall, is a fascinating piece of history. It's lovely. It runs to 200 metres from one end to the other. And in fact, carrying 29 million passengers every year, this is Poland's busiest railway station. Better make sure I get on the right train, huh? Now, the journey over to Łódź today is going to take about 3.5 hours. It involves one change just before we get to Łódź, and a first-class ticket has only cost €20. That's incredible value. Now that means that if you're just travelling within Poland, you really don't need a rail pass. Just buy the tickets as you go. You can either get them at the station from the machines, from the booking office, or you can book in advance on the PKP Intercity website. It's really easy to use, translates into English, and you can make your payments and get your tickets in advance. Well, the first class experience over from Wrocław was nice enough. A compartment instead of a carriage, which means if you get it to yourself, it's really nice and air conditioned and you can stretch your feet. But if, as I did today, you end up in a compartment full of people, 6 people that is, it's a little bit cosy. And when those people aren't especially fragrant, shall we say, it can be a bit of an off-putting experience. Now, we had to change trains at Koluszki station. There was a 10-minute connection between train A and train B, and guess what? Train A was 12 minutes late. Not to worry though, because from Koluszki there are plenty of local trains that go to Łódź every half an hour. Had to buy an extra ticket because it's a local service, but it was just over €2, so not too bad. Łódź is a huge railway station on several levels really. You come from the bowels and up here to street level where the trams and buses all congregate. That's a number 5. That's not the one I want. I want the number 12 that's going to Redkina in 4 minutes, but they are very efficient. Now, if you manage to download the public transport app for Wrocław, you can use it here in Łódź as well, and in many Polish cities. All you do is top up the amount of zloty you want on the app and purchase the relevant ticket. Again, a 24-hour ticket here is going to come in at about €3.50. My first impressions of Łódź is it's a bit more industrial than Wrocław, in fact, very much so. This was the home of the textiles industry for many years, and as we were coming through the city, you could see the remnants of that. Lots of old buildings, but also lots of new, shiny glass buildings going up everywhere. Now, from where the tram has dropped me off, right at the bottom of Poland's largest and longest shopping street, no less, is my hotel. And it's in a location with a difference. And that's because our residence is just off the main street here in Łódź. The Stare Kino Cinema residence. This building was actually Poland's first independent cinema. And the hotel is housed in a wonderful old building with stacks and stacks of history. And guess what? You get a free film every night as well in their very own cinema viewing room. We do not have a bedroom. We have a small apartment suite with the bed neatly hidden behind this wall here. That's good. And in front of me, there's a kitchenette. We have a balcony overlooking a bunch of umbrellas. I think it might be due to rain later. These are the sort of decorative umbrellas that you see in some streets. Very beautiful out there. And on the walls are images of Polish cinema. There's an enormous image of a wrestler in a film that my guide tells me is Aria dla Atleti. The film follows a former world champion wrestler who donates his trophies to an opera house and recounts his life story to a journalist. And it's a Polish psychological drama from 1978. Who knew you could come to a hotel and learn about the history of Polish cinema? It's absolutely marvellous. There should be more of this. Wherever you end up in Łódź, you're likely to start at Piotrkowska. It is Poland's longest continuous street, 5 kilometres by some measurements. And all along it are attractive restaurants, bars, hotels, eateries, shops, the lot. Now, in theory, part of it is pedestrianised, which means you should be able to walk around without getting run over. However, it is extremely popular with cyclists who whiz by at great speeds. So beware. Hire scooters too, they're all around. Now this area's got a bit of a notorious past because during the Second World War it was actually named Adolf Hitler Strasse. It fell into a bit of disrepair in the 1960s, and then in the 1990s the civic authorities decided to do something about it and smarten it up, and they've certainly done that today. About a third of the way up Piotrkowska Street, you will come across this extremely elegant looking building. It's a kind of terracotta design with many classical bits of decorations. And it's important because this isn't about celebrating anything. This is about commemorating a concentration camp that was set up here for children in the Second World War. Now, the museum tells the story of what went on here between 1942 and 1945 in what turns out to be a fairly grim building that's still standing. The camp was created to imprison Polish children aged between 8 and 16, often for petty offences or simply because their parents opposed Germanisation efforts. It's a poignant place, and it's open from Tuesdays. You're listening to Travelcaster today, coming to you from the Polish city of Łódź. To find out how to get here and what to do when you arrive, subscribe to the pod and see all of the details at travelcaster.blog. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Łódź is famous for its textiles industry. And you don't have to go very far in the city to see signs of the industrial past. There are run-down former factories and demolished buildings just about everywhere off the main streets. But here, just off Pier Tarkowska, they've created something rather magical. Imagine huge 19th century cotton mills, now converted into a centre for entertainment. There are bars here, independent retail stores, and a whole load of history all around. Post-industrial chic, you might call it, a bit trendy, you might say, but it hits the spot, especially on a warm evening like this, when you can sit outside, admire the architecture, and sip a lovely cold beer. And this particular corner of the complex is my favourite, the football pub. Inside, there are scarves from just about every club you can imagine. If you can't find yours, I'm told you get a free drink. I might have just made that up. You'll definitely have to pay, but it's cheap enough. Now, in the heat of July, it's good to escape the outside and come indoors, and here we are at the Poznański Palace, home to one of the wealthiest citizens of Łódź, Israel Poznański, an industrialist in the 19th century. He built this as his residence, and today it houses the City of Łódź Museum. It is an opulent, elegant, highly decorated building full of wonderful, stately rooms and, notably, quite a lot of pianos. Unfortunately, we can't play any of them. Well, at least I don't think we can officially. Let's find out. Now, having walked around a bit more of the museum, I've realised the piano connection. Artur Rubinstein was a famous Polish-American pianist, born in 1885. He made over 200 recordings, and that probably accounts for the many pianos and pictures of the great man himself here at the museum. Again, though, can't play any of the pianos. Bit disappointed at that. But you can enjoy his music and read some of his many quotes and scan some of the dozens of pictures of him over the decades. And when you're done with all that culture inside the museum, you can have a walk round the rather ornate formal gardens outside and perhaps take a drink. Maybe even have a picnic or a sandwich or something like that. Although at the moment, there's quite a lot of noise around with various bits of construction work going on nearby. And rest well whilst you are here, because next we've got to go shopping. But not to any old shopping centre. You see, Israel Poznański's empire wasn't just confined to what is now the museum. It was here in 1872 where a series of factories were built, and they are enormous red brick affairs with historical artifacts all around. But today, they're a huge shopping and leisure complex called Manufacturer. Restaurants adorn this walkway with an azure blue fountain show going on behind me. And over there, a slightly more modern building which houses a shopping mall. Not normally one of my favourite places when I'm travelling, but I'm going to make an exception here. And if you've got kids, it's great because there is an enormous children's playground done out like a beach with a kind of fun house thing going on there. There's a Ferris wheel, there are go-karts, and yeah, noisy, decorative, and refreshing fountains too. Not everything in Łódź is as it first appears. You may see a number of buildings and you might think that's a rather elegant design on the side there. I wonder how they made the windows that... Oh, they're not windows at all. They're paintings, because murals and street art are in abundance in this city. A great example being here at Schiller's Passage, just off Piotrowska. You can see a cinema screen that has been opened and some elegant windows all around it. The detail is absolutely stunning, and at first sight, as I say, you can be easily mistaken it. There was a real building there. Now, along with culture, the one thing that Łódź has got in abundance is traffic. Away from the safety of Piotrowska are enormous 4- and 6-lane roads, and if you're walking around anywhere or attempting to walk anywhere, you may have to wait quite a while just to get across. And you need to take that into account whether you're walking or using public transport. There can be delays. You may have to leave a little bit of extra time to get to your destination. And as you near the top of Piotrowska Street, you come across this, the Plac Wolności, the Freedom Square, signified by its fountains that dance up and down and that children often bathe in during the hot summer days. And above the fountains is a huge monument to Tadeusz Korzeniowski. That's easy for me to say. Who was Tadeusz Korzeniowski? Well, he was the leader of the Polish army. Only in 1794, after he had led a revolution and a resistance against the Prussians and the Russians. And he's not the only hero that's commemorated here, because around the square are 600 individual plaques detailing people who've made a difference to the city of Łódź. I'm not sure if the man who invented the sewers is here, but he should be, because just behind the square is the Museum of the Sewer, where you can go underground and get smelly. There's a museum for everything these days. Now, my first night in Łódź was spent in that post-industrial factory that's now a bar and restaurant complex. My second night, well, that was spent at the Piwo and Vodka bar, which serve even cheaper drinks than everywhere else. And they may have had karaoke on that might have sounded like this. My 48 hours in Łódź has really been impressive. I really didn't know what to expect when I arrived here, but the combination of that industrial heritage now manifesting itself as entertainments, bars and restaurant districts is fantastic. And the history of Polish cinema told through its streets and buildings is something well worth seeing. And a third thing as well, it's cheaper than Wrocław. It really is. Amazing value for money here. A beer will rarely cost you more than about €3, and a really decent top-of-the-range dinner no more than 20. Łódź is well worth a few hours of your time. But now our time is up. It's time to move on to the next stage of our Polish adventure. Don't forget to find out how to get here and what to do when you arrive. Just head to travelcaster.blog. Subscribe to the podcast and join us again for another edition of Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there.